succeed. May I attempt to offer a summary in simple terms of what's taking place at the legislature at the Minnesota State Capitol?
Okay.
You may.
Proceed, Your Honor.
And it's an explanation intended to show just how much of a parallel universe the third rail lives on.
All right.
Right? The election was held, and we learned that it was 67-66 in favor of Republicans,
Correct.
with a contested seat in Roseville due to the fellow winning having it found out that he cheated.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't live in Roseville. He rented a studio apartment, did not live there. The DFL knew about this because Paul Wickstrom, the Republican candidate who lost to Curtis Johnson, knew about this in the summer. He knew in the summer
I can't believe they let it go that long.
that Johnson wasn't living at this studio apartment. Wickstrom had, by the way, he's been invited on the show, and his people haven't gotten back to us.
Well, I know he was not available today.
All right. Wickstrom was told by a very credible source in Roseville that, hey, that guy you're running against doesn't live in Roseville. He's rented a studio apartment, but
It's empty.
there's nothing there, and his cars are at home at night in Little Canada. He's not staying there. And then, to be sure, Wickstrom had some of his volunteers observe this, watch the place to make sure. Wickstrom didn't want to accuse him of this unless he was sure. So Wickstrom, he had videotape, he had logs, he had observers, and yes, it's true, Curtis Johnson did not live in Roseville. The only thing I think happened is that it was such a safe DFL seat that the DFL, who quite clearly knew that Curtis Johnson wasn't living in Roseville, they just let it ride because they figured, who in the hell will even know?
So much so, Joe, that the GOP candidate that was going against him let the world know a month before the election. Everybody knew before the election.
Paul Wickstrom, yeah. He knew, and he documented it,
But-
and he was careful.
I'm sorry. I guess you were. I thought you were referring to the guy that lost the primary to Johnson.
No, I'm
Who-
talking
because-
about the election in November for the seat.
That guy, and I wish I could remember his name. The guy that lost in the primary, he also knew.
Oh.
He was out knocking on doors, which proves the DFL knew.
Okay, so the DFL knows this. They don't do anything about it. Wickstrom blows the whistle, and sure enough, it's acted upon. Well, this can't stand. There's your first change in reality from the regular life. There'll be an accommodation for this cheating on the third rail. The Democrats ran to the governor and said, harumph, harumph, you've got to help us. We've been caught.
Yeah.
Our guy who won cheated. He didn't. Okay, you get a new election then. Let's set it for January 28th, okay? Third rail life, you know.
Yeah.
The stock car race, the second guy wins, but this is not real life. So, January 14th comes along just this week, this past Tuesday, and it's the day to be seated and sworn in. The Democrats chose to stage some sort of theatrical nonsense where over last weekend they got sworn in at the History Center. We still don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. The Republicans, all 67 of them, showed up Tuesday, sat down, got sworn in, ready to work. The Democrats said, well, this can't be. We're terrified that you'll have control. Right. We're absolutely terrified that you evil, crude Republicans are going to have the power in this House. We have to have power sharing.
You don't know what you're doing. Right.
Because they're going to assume that a Democrat will win this seat in Roseville on January 28th, which makes them 67-67. And the Democrats preemptively are saying we need power sharing.
Right.
Well, but on the way to the game, their bus ran into a ditch and they didn't show up at the gym.
Aha.
They didn't show up at the gym. They didn't show up to play. They didn't show up to work. So therefore, the Republicans who were there, and it's quite reasonable to expect power sharing if you're split 67-67. Presumably that would have been worked out had the Democrats showed up for work. But not only did they didn't show up for work, it's life on the third rail. We're not only not showing up, we want to be paid, and we want our per diems, and we want the taxpayers to pay for all the lawsuits that we're going to file to get this straightened out, because we can't surrender our power. We've had it now for a long time. We're not letting go.
That is so accurate.
We want equality here. We want equity. We want the power sharing. The Republicans, to their character, are saying, "Yeah, well, you're not here to discuss it. What do you want to?" So they named Lisa Demuth the Speaker of the House.
Okay.
This causes Melissa Hartman to damn near need the Heimlich maneuver.
Yes, she's
she
very
can't
upset.
function now.
Very.
Oh my God, harumph. How could this be? And so they say, you can't do that. You don't have a quorum.
Right.
Okay, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Democrats continue to stay away from work, still not showing up. Presumably, they might not show up until January 28th or January 29th.
What's your
when we
number?
learn finally who legitimately won the seat to represent 40B, which is mostly Roseville.
Right.
They got a new guy running. Gottfried's a DFL'er.
That's the guy I was referring to, Godfrey.
No, he's a DFL'er.
Right,
And he's going to take Curtis Johnson's place on the ballot, and Paul Wickstrom's going to run against Curtis Gottfried. And the betting money says that it's such a I don't know how you people in Roseville can afford it, but it's such a DFL seat that we're presuming that Gottfried wins. All right. I hope he doesn't. The earth would move under our feet if Wickstrom run. But let's say he wins. Now you're 67, and now these louts might return to work. And what are they going to do? They're not going to be worried about your needs. They're not worried about the needs of the constituents. They're worried about power sharing. To which the Republicans can accurately respond, look, we've been here 2-3 weeks.
Right.
We're working. You haven't been here. So Lisa Demuth is the speaker. Well, we can't have that. That's not fair. That's not power sharing.
Just the way it is.
Well, where were you? Well, we're third rail people. We have our own rules and regulations. We don't have to be there.
Right.
We can do whatever we want because we have special rules and regulations. We're special. So all that can be forecasted for January 29th is a bleep show.
Well, it already is.
Right. It's going to be a full-fledged
A continuing run on.
bleep show with 67 people on one side of the aisle and 67 people on the other side of the aisle. And basically, what they'll be arguing about are their positions inside that building. They're not going to be worried about your water or your lights or your electricity or the streets or plows or parks. No, that's not why they're there. They're there for their own agendas.
They're there for one reason.
Yes, they are. You're here for one reason, to bleep us.
Don't forget, though, before all of that happens, the Supreme Court will end up ruling also, so that could change the way things.
Right.
January 23rd, they have the hearing on from Simon and from Democrats. So
On
they could rule,
on the Tabke seat?
No,
On the Wickstrom seat.
Oh, yeah.
No, and on the the Republicans doing anything the first day.
Oh, yeah.
And they could get rid of Demuth if they wanted to, the Supreme Court, depending on what they rule.
And you're paying for that. The taxpayers will pay for that lawsuit. And what the lawsuit is saying is that the Democrats immediately ran to the courts and said, well, the governor saved us with a special election because we're on the third rail. Now you, Supreme Court, you save us and get rid of this Lisa Demuth. That's unconscionable. We can't have a Republican